Hello everybody, welcome once again to Manga Mondays, the only manga review show that will probably outlive all of the other weekly vlogs that I've been doing because it's by far the most fun to do and conceptually actually makes sense, since I actually talk about stuff I just read on the show. Today I'm going to be talking about Black Clover. This is one of the newer manga running in Shonen Jump. I think it started in 2015? 2015, and I would assume that it was sort of taking the place of either Naruto or Bleach, which was ending at the time, because, as you may be aware, aside from One Piece, most of the really big titans of Shonen Jump have come to an end in the last couple years. Bleach finally wrapped up, Naruto finally wrapped up, what was the other big one? I know Toriko ended. Some other big stuff ended, so it's been a time of changes in Shonen Jump, where now the biggest thing other than One Piece is like Haikyuu. But one of the new starters is Black Clover, which I think is the first of the like really new ones that's actually come stateside. Seems to be fairly popular, and I decided to give it a look just because I kind of wanted to see what the new generation of Shonen Jump is going to be. You know, I mean, I grew up with Naruto and Bleach. Those were some manga that I read when I was a fucking teenager. I was reading Naruto when I was 12. So the idea of, like, seeing what's it like now, what are they going to be aiming at kids my age today? And I will say, Black Clover is definitely a manga I would have enjoyed as a 12-year-old. As an adult, I mostly see it as a kind of just an amalgamation of, like, everything from Shonen Jump ever. This definitely has no really new ideas, and what's there, it's not necessarily, like, done exceptionally well. I think it's a solid shonen du jour kind of thing. You know, there's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing exceptional about it. It's kind of fun, kind of funny, has kind of okay action, kind of okay artwork, but there's nothing particularly special about it. So it's basically about this kid who is Naruto. He's an orphan who lives in a village that has a sort of hierarchical system, at the top of which is a wizard king. I think he's called the Wizard King, something like that. And he wants to become that one day. So he basically wants to be Hokage, just like Naruto wanted to be that. Also an orphaned kid who's kind of bratty and untalented, and everyone else thinks he's not going to make it anywhere, but he goddamn believes in himself. Now, personality-wise, though, he's less like Naruto and more like the main character from Haikyuu. He's short and he's physically very active, and he's very determined, and he practices all the time, because in this is a world where everybody can use magic except for the main character. So it's the world of My Hero Academia. So you've got the My Hero Academia situation where the main character has, he doesn't have any superpowers, everybody else does, but like the main character from Haikyuu, in spite of the fact that he's so underprivileged, I guess, he trains constantly. He's just completely confident he's going to be able to make it. He has no questions about this idea. He's just always training physically to make up for his lack in magical ability. Now, he has this rival who's this dark-haired sort of wonder kid who everybody loves and thinks is amazing. So a little bit of a Sasuke. He's less of a shit character than Sasuke is at the start of the story, but he's the rival who they both grew up in the same orphanage together, but he's got really great magical powers. And so there's this big ceremony where when everybody turns 15, they get a grimoire that gives them powers, and or gives them magical spells they can use, I guess. And of course, this guy gets the 4-leaf Clover book, which is the ultimate, and he's got all the best magical powers in the world, and he'll probably become Wizard King. But then this kid gets a 5-leaf Clover, which is the anti-magic book. His thing is that his magic is so lacking that he can cancel magic. So he gets this big-ass fucking sword, which is pretty good sword. I'd give it a strong sword to a light sword. It's a fucking It's a big sword. Let me find a good picture of this big sword doing something cool. It's big and black. I'm not finding a good picture. I would have thought it was a cool sword as a kid, you know. I wasn't necessarily into gigantic swords, but I do like the sort of stripped down swords. I like swords that are just like simplistic but dynamic looking, you know. Especially a black sword. That would have been pretty fucking cool when I was a kid. Sort of like the swords in Claymore, but a little fatter. Not quite a guts sword though. So anyways, yeah, this kid, he's super underpowered. Everyone, like, half the dialogue in the first half of this volume is just characters saying, there's no way that kid from the boonies with no magic can do anything, and then he shows everybody up by doing amazing magic. Now, the one thing that I will say that was somewhat different was the one spark of creativity in this that I kind of like. Not that I've never seen this before, I just can't think of one off the top of my head from Shonen Jump, but the main thing that was interesting is that this guy looks up to this guy, and sort of vice versa. Their rivalry is on the same grounds. They both want one another to... They both want to be the Wizard King, but they also want one another to be their competition for it. So they're both equally enthusiastic about the other person's success and defensive of one another. You know, when either one of them is in trouble, the other one will come to help them. And, you know, even though he's got all the magical ability, he still thinks that this kid has, you know, is his only real competition. So, like, that's the one element of the rivalry that I do think is cool. Unfortunately, whereas that rivalry is the strongest thing about this manga for the first half of the volume, it's kind of completely shelved in the second half, because the two of them become magical knights, and they go into different platoons, and we don't really see Rival Guy at all throughout the rest of the volume. So then the main character joins this platoon of magic knights who are like, it's like the asshole team. It's like all the like rejects and weirdos. The scene where he goes to their like headquarters is almost like identical to the scene of Soma from Shokugeki no Soma going to the like meet his crew. Like it's the same kind of thing, like a dorm full of wacky crazy people who are all losing their shit, you know. Though this one does not end up giving the characters the kind of strong characterization that happens in that early part of Soma, where, like, they all kind of bond and everything. That doesn't really happen here. The main character kid kind of bonds with this other gangster guy just because they're both strong, I guess. Whatever. Finally, they introduce this very cute girl who's, like, the girl. I don't know if she's a love interest, per se, but her thing is that she cannot control her magic. She has extremely powerful magic, but she can't control it. And so she finds a kind of kinship with the main character, you know, who can't use magic at all, because he thinks that her magic is super cool in spite of the fact that she can't control it. And also she's a noble. I kind of like her character from what they've shown so far. I like that she's, that she starts off like kind of seeming like a tsundere, like she's like, oh, I'm the proper, she reminds me of the girl from Soma, from Shokugeki no Soma, and that she's like a very prim, proper lady, but unlike that girl, she actually like recognizes that this kid's cool and kind of seems to take to him quickly, though not romantically. It's not really clear where their relationship will go from there, because it just kind of jumps into the first action part after that, and the first villain is just, like, ridiculously overblown evil, and the whole scenario they get themselves into is really corny. It's just, like, they get called out to some village, they go there, and this guy's about to murder all the villagers because, they're, you know, commoners are weak magic users, and he thought, he's extremely strict with time, and he thought, you know, the fact that these people exist might eventually cause me problems with timing in some way, so I'm gonna kill them. It was just, like, it's totally random. I'll say that the style of comedy of this and the overall tone and also the kinds of villains all feels very One Piece to me, but not as good. Like, it doesn't have the same energy that One Piece has, but it has that same kind of pacing to it of, like, you know, somewhat serious dialogue, then joke, then, like, wacky over-the-top reactions and stuff like that. It's tonally, I mean, this is a totally One Piece face right here. So it definitely feels like One Piece was a big influence. it really feels like every other Shonen Jump manga combined into one. Like all the Jump manga of the last 12 years. Like it feels like it's meant to replace Naruto. It feels like it takes elements from, all the popular stuff right now, My Hero Academia, Haikyuu, and Shokugeki no Soma, and blends all that together into a story in a fantasy setting. And the funny thing about that is that, like, while the artwork, like, the main thing that makes this feel high fantasy is the sort of wispy line work. I guess you can't really tell that well on camera, but, like, everything has that sort of, that wispiness that's very, like, Berserk-esque, but there's just not enough detail. Like, occasionally you'll get a big, detailed shot, like this library shot, or, there's one in the first chapter of, like, a big environment shot. Yeah, here. Like, this is, like, the most detailed and fantasy-esque image in the whole thing. But most of the time, there's not really much backgrounds. There's not a whole lot of background art. There's no real sense of place or setting. Like, you'll get a broad sense that they're, like, in a castle or something, but you never see where the characters are, like, in relationship to anything. They're just kind of around, There's very rarely a sense of the environment or backgrounds or the world that this takes place in. It just kind of seems like a generic fantasy with wizards kind of world. I'm not entirely sure what exactly the vibe is supposed to be of it, because there's so little background art, and just, yeah, I would say it doesn't have a lot of its own personality. It has shades of, like, One Piece, or even Rave Master. Reminds me a little bit of, like, Hiro Mashima's style, but, like, there's nothing that makes this stand out as, like, this is the new go-to series. Even the artwork, I don't think is really exceptional in the way that, like, the first time you see Naruto, it's like, whoa, that's a really different kind of style, it has the wispiness going for it of the line work, but it just doesn't come off as, like, particularly unique to me. The only character design that actually struck me is the girl. Like, she actually, I thought, was a kind of cool design, and is pretty distinct looking, whereas the main characters just look like, shonen manga characters. I really hate the design of the guy whose face I showed and said it was a very One Piece face. Like, that guy is the leader of the squadron the main character joins, and I just think he looks ugly as hell. But yeah, so that's it. It's Shonen Jump du jour. You could read, any of the stuff I named is better than this, at least in the first volume. And I mean, I flipped through volume 2 of this in the store just to see, like, if it would go anywhere. It didn't look like it would. It seemed like it, because the story doesn't really make any progress in this. Like, the two main characters, we know that they want to eventually be Wizard Kings, and they join the Magic Knights at the beginning, which seemed like that was going to be kind of an eventual goal. It's kind of like if, in My Hero Academia, if the main character had got accepted into the academy in episode 1, and they just let him go on hero missions immediately. That's what this feels like. It's like they just joined the Magic Knights, and then they just are Magic Knights, and now they're on a mission, and it's like, what is this, like, what are we building towards? What are they hoping to get after this? They're already in the Magic Knights. How do you make it to Wizard King? Where do you go from here? Like, Naruto, you had this understanding that you become a chunin at some point, and then you move up through the ranks, and, like, I just don't know where this is going at all. So yeah, like, I mean, if you just want to read a shonen manga with action and stuff, go read My Hero Academia. Like, that's the better one running right now, unless you just want to see big fucking sword, but you're probably not 12, so I don't know if that's enough to sell you. Anyway, that's it for this episode.